Hi, guys. My name is Thornton, and you are listening to the One Up podcast. You can also see these live videos by going to Amena.Media to go directly to the YouTube channel. Today, we are doing another episode for Message of Hope, Stories from Struggle to Success. And today, we are welcoming in Tony. Tony, you need to say your last name for me, please.
Guarnacha.
Guarnacha. So,
yeah, a lot easier to say than read, perhaps.
It is. It's easier to remember than I thought, actually, because it looks complicated, but Guarnacha is actually not too hard. I've had some really difficult last names, and I've struggled through some of them, but I try my best. So Tony has come on to share his story with us on how he's pretty much lost everything. I know a little bit of his story from his bio. He was in a place that where he felt that he was absolutely not succeeding, didn't have any funds, couldn't pay rent, couldn't pay his bills. And had a wife and a child on the way. So definitely a struggle, very stressful point in his life. And he's coming on today to share how he overcame that. And he's going to tell us how he's giving back to other people and helping them improve their lives as well. So Tony, how did everything start on this?
Yeah, so I'll go back to when I was 12. And so I grew up in small business. My parents had a small Italian bakery, and they were wonderful bakers, but unfortunately didn't know what they didn't know about growing a small business. And so at the age of just 12, it failed, and we lost everything. So that was kind of the start of my challenges. And so,
how long did they own the bakery? Was it around for a while, or?
It wasn't a long. It was a little bit over a year.
Okay.
So they started off strong, and then it dried away. Yeah, and that happens to a lot of businesses. They get in and they don't understand what they're getting into, and so we had to move into my oldest sister's basement, essentially. And so it was me, my mom, and my father, and we lived there until we could get ourselves back on our feet. And so, my dad got a job. We kind of we lost a car even. My poor dad had to ride a bike into work.
Wow.
It was tough. It was really challenging. And so that was kind of where I started, this aspect of my journey, at 12. And so later on, years later, I go to college. I say to myself, I'm going to redeem the past, essentially. Looking back at myself, I wasn't really saying it then, but I'm looking back, understanding myself. And that was kind of where I was at. And so I went and studied entrepreneurship in college, left there, and started another bakery. This was an online bakery, and that was kind of like the new
So you're
thing.
like, I am bringing back the bakery.
I am, I was in the late 90s. I think it was one of the first bakeries online.
It probably was
really cool.
The early 90s. Yeah, we didn't have much back in the early 90s online.
Mid more towards the end of the 90s, but so
I just looked at the Wayback Machine on some sites because I was early startup type of person, did online businesses online. In fact, I sold a business, from online adventure. But I was looking at the Wayback, which is that it's a search engine that you can go and look at what your old sites used to look like, and what a difference. Like sometimes you remember something, you're like, it wasn't that like plain, right? Now it's everything's so fancy and colorful and interactive. It's like, wow, no, it was exactly like I remembered, like a page with some random links and some thrown in ads like everywhere.
That's exactly what we did. So I mean, you can look up that website in there. It was called Image Cake.
Oh, Image Cake. And you had a premium domain. That would have been.
I did,
premium. Yeah.
It was a good domain, And so what we could do is we could literally take a photo, put it on a cake, and then mail it anywhere in the country. And so you can kind of find that now, like the photo cakes, if you go in the grocery stores. But over 20 years ago, those weren't available. And so we had kind of the first technology.
I haven't seen them until like the mid 2000s, and I was like,
we had that. We had those a long time ago.
That's really cool.
So because of that, and the ability to combine that with the ability to ship a cake, so we could literally take a cake, and we used dry ice and a pin structure. You could literally throw the cake, and it would survive. So UPS could ship it, FedEx could ship it. And that became a huge differentiator because a lot of, we basically had two areas within that company. One was promotional products. And so with that, we got some big names. Like we literally did a birthday cake for Jay-Z. We did one for Jennifer Lopez. And we also had corporate gifts that we'd mail to Microsoft and IBM and all these huge companies. And then we also did gifts, so for instance, if your kid was in college, you can mail them a birthday cake that said happy birthday. So it got off to a really strong start.
Yeah.
And so that was like kind of, we actually won New York Incentive Show, Best New Product. So we were really killing it. And, here I am at 28. I'm thinking, wow, I got this down. Business isn't that hard. Mom and dad must have, screwed up something.
Yeah, something. I don't know what they did, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. But then surprisingly, that business failed.
And so that kind of,
how so? Well, I didn't account for, and it's crazy because we had the best PR, we had celebrity clients, we had all these things going for us, but I didn't understand the importance of profitability and how like FedEx and UPS raised their shipping rates, and that really constricted our margins. There's just a lot of things that I wasn't prepared for.
Yeah.
This was really my first business, and I did it with my parents, and I felt bad because that likewise closed. And so I found myself in my thankfully I have lots of sisters, but sister number 2, we ended up moving into her basement.
Luckily everybody has basements.
Good thing I'm in New England. So thankfully everyone's got basements. But so that business failed. And that time is kind of where we started the story originally. That was kind of where I was newly married and I had a baby on the way. And so not the great way to start a marriage or anything, but we kind of made it through. And looking back, I said to myself, I don't know what I'm doing, but who does? And that was when I really started the journey that brings me to even where we are today. So I left kind of doing my own thing, and I went to work with some of the best companies in the world to learn how to actually grow a business successfully. So that's why I went to work.
With no money? Or you actually had some money like on a credit card or something?
No, we had nothing. I was literally to survive when I first started. So the funny thing is, I lose everything with that company, but I gained a great skill. And so in the late 90s, in the early 2000s, I had learned SEO from literally the best people in the world. And so I parlayed that SEO knowledge to get into working with, essentially I took a job with an agency, and that agency worked with a lot of very successful companies. And so I worked my way up very quickly.
So you were doing like freelancing, like early freelancing, it sounds like.
Well, I was starting to look for early freelancing, anything I could get, literally. And at that point, literally things were so dire. I was selling my Star Wars collection because I had a Star Wars collection of toys, Transformers, anything I could. And my wife and I became experts on eBay.
That's
just
crazy.
To make it through.
Just
to make it through.
I actually tried eBay. Like, I think it was probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I just absolutely, I was already working with Amazon. I had a small book company and doing used books. Because my kids were so they were little babies and I needed to do something something. I've already sold a business. I didn't have any other businesses that I was doing. And I was like, I want to do something, know? So I was like, oh, I'll do books. And I got into working with Amazon. That was amazing. And then I was like, well, I'll do some eBay. And I was like, I hate eBay. I absolutely hate eBay. And it's because there's a lot of storage and it's not a book. You can't just like store it easier. Books are heavy. So I recommend if anybody out there really wants to get into books, just know they're really heavy.
They are.
And that's why I got out of books. And plus my life changed and I really found my purpose. But but eBay, it's hard because
it was
you got to do all the different packaging and you got to like have different size boxes.
Yeah, it was a pain.
And the different costs of shipping. You got the wear.
Yeah, all that stuff. We went through all of that. But I'll tell you, back then it was great because you want, how else would I get rid of these valuable
Oh
toys? I
yeah.
mean,
Oh
yard
yeah.
sales wouldn't work, you know, so
No, yard sales never work. Please
no,
don't do yard sales.
no, don't do
Anybody
yard
out
sales.
there?
Yeah.
Anybody out there? Yeah, I've done yard sales because my friends like did yard sales and they're like, "You want to bring some stuff over?" And I did, and it's just so waste of time. Even like putting it out there and then putting it back in your car and then eventually just like giving it away or selling it on eBay. You might as well just start with eBay.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't working. So, but you know, that got us through. I mean, it was amazing that we survived that. And then essentially I used what I learned for SEO to really start working. So I went and took a job finally. So I said, you know, I'm not getting traction because the funny thing is back then, nobody knew what SEO was.
No.
So I couldn't get hired for freelance.
I did SEO too. Like, yeah, that's how I did all my startups.
Yeah, exactly.
SEO.
So I couldn't get, unbelievably, I couldn't get a job.
Yeah.
Because no one heard it. And so then some random little agency that served automotive was just as desperate to hire someone to do SEO, as I was to fulfill it because they couldn't find anyone because it wasn't an industry. It's crazy now.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Nobody knew what it was called. Nobody, it was like SEO, search engine optimization. Why do I need that?
Yeah.
Make a website. Just tell people about it. No, you're going to be spending more time telling people about it. They'll never show up to your website than you can just get ranking on Google and get people.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of where I went, and I ended up working, a lot in the automotive industry. They had some of the biggest car dealerships in the country.
Yeah.
And then what happened was they got acquired by ADP, the payroll company. ADP, they write basically everyone's checks. Fortune 300 company.
Oh, okay.
Massive.
Okay.
But, what was interesting is back then they had a whole automotive division.
Oh, interesting.
So I got hired, and I ended up basically running all their digital advertising and their SEO, all the marketing. And so it was a really amazing time because, through that, I ended up working with a lot of the greatest companies around, Google, Ford Motor Company. I started their program, worked with General Motors, Penske, just so many big brands,
Oh, and yeah. They're looking to get online and
everybody, I was there at the right time in the right place. And so everybody needed SEO at that time. And then kind of the real juggernaut came shortly after, which is when Google AdWords launched. And so I had the opportunity to kind of ride that whole wave. And, I was one of the first to really capitalize on that. Had Google's Agency of the Year back in 2009. I piloted YouTube ads. I launched Google Radio, which isn't even around today, but a lot of really cool stuff. I got to work with.
Yeah, I don't even remember Google Radio. I don't think I remember Google Radio, which is cool.
Yeah, Google Radio was awesome because you could buy terrestrial radio for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And, everybody loved it because it was such a bargain. But unfortunately, it was too much of a bargain, I suppose, because they couldn't make money off of it. So
yeah, they just didn't want to spend, I guess, whatever they were spending on to make it keep running.
Yeah. So that was a really wild ride. So then, kind of after all that, I went back and said, I want to return back to my roots and start my own company to help, people learn everything that I learned. And so that kind of went into initially an agency, and now I'm doing consulting and training. But the mission's always been the same. It's really to bring the strategy, tactics, and resource and tools that the best companies use to small businesses, which I call democratized marketing.
What do you call it?
Democratized marketing. So my mission
democrating.
democratize.
I don't know if I can say it.
Democratized marketing. Yes. So much in the way that Salesforce democratized kind of SaaS companies, they're very well known for that. Yeah. My whole idea is to democratize marketing.
So people can really understand it and actually be able to use it because, the big companies definitely can pretty much do a lot more than most people can because they own the platform. A lot of people own the platform and there's not too many other options you could do, which is totally fine. They got that far by doing what they're doing. They're good at it, but it would be nice to definitely utilize whatever they know to better your business, better, the people that come to you as business.
Correct.
So very cool.
Yeah.
So you teach them about SEO and what other tactics do you concentrate on? So you do the website stuff, but do you teach like how to get clients, how to retain clients and all that as well?
Yeah, well, what I found is that there's really three things that are necessary to grow a business.
Mhm.
You need to know what to do, you need to know how to do it, and then you need to leverage your resources and actually do it. And
Yeah.
so most people get stuck on the second thing, how to do it, which are a lot of the
Yeah.
tactics. So how do I do SEO? How do I do Facebook? How do I do all that? Where what the best companies focus on initially is the what to do, which is, what is my strategy? How am I going to execute with my plan? What is my messaging? Kind of a lot of the more strategic areas is where a lot of businesses that are very successful, that's where they put time and effort. Where
So
most small
so
businesses,
they say, so big companies, you would say, ask what instead of how. That
correct.
was the big takeaway,
Yes.
that I hear.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the same thing with mindset too, because it's not focusing on how you're going to get there.
Yeah,
It's focusing exactly what you want. So you
correct.
have to be very determined and you
Correct.
have to be very descriptive on the why, like why do I want it, and then what do I want, and
Correct.
exactly determine what exactly are you wanting, and then don't worry about the rest because everything else is going to fall in place and answer itself. But
Exactly.
yeah, I hear it all the time. Like
Yeah.
people talk to me. I literally was just talking to a lady this morning and she's just like, I don't know what you're doing. I really want to learn everything you're learning. And I'm like, well, what is your why?
Yeah.
Why you want to do it? What do you
Right.
see that I'm doing that you want to do yourself? Because you
Right.
can do whatever I'm doing. You just got to determine what do you want in your life, you
Exactly.
know? And I don't
Yeah, and
think
the
she's very
why
clear.
and the why will kind of help you get through the challenges. If you don't have
Yeah.
a big enough why, when you hit a major obstacle, you're not going to be able to overcome it. And so the
No.
why is really important to kind of propel you through it, but the what is very important too, because if you don't know what you're going to do, how are you going to possibly accomplish it?
Yeah.
But it's crazy, but like,
Yeah. It
if you
seems
look.
so easy, but I
Yeah.
know it's because we're I like to say we're all set up in this default fail mode
Yeah.
between self-doubt, between excuses, and between past traumas
Yeah.
that we're scared. For one, we're
Yeah.
scared to ask, or we were never like given the option to ask ourselves what we want, because
Yeah.
society tells us what we want
Right.
and our
Right.
friends and peers tell us what we want. And so we're always looking for something outside of us to answer that question for us.
Yeah.
And that's where I think like majority of people get stuck, because they don't really know who they are and what they want. So they can't ask for anything. And then they feel weird asking for it because they don't think they deserve it, or like you said, they don't know the how. So they think for some reason they need to know something that they don't already know to get somewhere where
Yeah.
they don't even know where they're going,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're not
Yeah.
going to get somewhere if you don't put it down. And, I was having this conversation the other day. Most people put more time and planning into their wedding, into their vacation,
That's
and
true.
than their own life and their
That's
business. It's crazy.
true. Yeah, you're right. You're right
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because they'll save like thousands of dollars to go to say Disneyland. And then
Yeah.
they'll say, I'm gonna upgrade everything because this is gonna be like the dream. And then they're planning like exactly what they're gonna see and do. And they already like built up that image so well in their mind that they're already
Yeah.
pre-programming exactly what everything happens. And usually they do live
Yeah.
out that, but
They,
they don't do it in their everyday life.
no.
They don't put that much planning and effort and say, this is exactly how I want to be. This is what the person I am growing. And I'm going to put just as much effort into that.
Exactly.
And ultimately, feel like I have purpose and
Right.
the wants that I want every day, instead
Yeah.
of like holding back. A lot of people say that a lot of people live for the weekends.
Yeah.
Everybody lives for the weekends. And I know a lot of people, successful people too, that live for the weekends, which is really sad to me, because I built
Yeah.
my life like over years, and a lot of people I know don't see it, just like you. I imagine a lot of people come to you as well and just like, you're successful, you're amazing, you got all this stuff going for you, and they think it just like happened like this,
No.
like just overnight, and
No.
it really didn't. it's a constant effort going forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know even successful people that fall into that, this living for the weekends, like they feel like they have to grind it Monday through Friday just so they can do what they want on the weekends. And I can't teach people that don't want to learn, but I try, to at least give them the information because, I know for me, I work weekends, but I work nights, but then I could take off a week or a month or whatever, but then I know there's going to be things that I'm going to have to come back to, or I'm going to have to let go. It's a choice, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And you're doing your book. You have a book coming out. What is this book? What is your book called again?
It's called Small Steps to Grow Profits.
Yeah, Small Steps to Grow Profits. And I know you're not writing that probably every day. You probably do a lot of other things as well. You're doing, is this program that's behind you? Is that a course that people are taking? Or
so no, that's a great question. So one of the things that I teach in my book is this framework, but this framework is something I found universally can be leveraged to grow any business. And so I teach this in my coaching. I have group coaching. I also have a training where people can take this, but it really takes them through what's called the results loop. So this is the results loop. And these are the 6 steps that you can take, or 6 factors, I should say, that influence your growth. So it starts with your markets, understanding who you're serving. Then it looks at your products and services or the offerings you have. Then your value, which is a big one, which answers the question, why would someone want to work with you as opposed to anyone else? Or God forbid, do nothing. That's the other option. Do nothing. That's a big one. And then really the 3 ways to grow your business from there: increasing new buyers, so new blood, basically, increasing the size of those buyers, the lifetime value of those buyers, and finally the loyalty, so getting people to come back more frequently, and also provide referrals. So kind of the ascension of that. And so any business, whether it's a Fortune 500 company or startup, I even taught this framework to a group of Girl Scouts, and they dramatically increase their cookie sales. And so it works for anybody.
Well, just a lot of it is, since I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I have, I mean, these are all very, very important values to learn. But I like how you did it in the constant framework, so people see that it's a cycle and that they can make this work. And it's not like a science. It's more of like a math in all and entrepreneur endeavors. It is math. It's not. It's not. It's not mystical, and it's not. And it's not like winning the lottery. You have to have some basic fundamentals. And you actually went to college too for this, right? Is that what you were saying?
Well, they don't teach you this kind of stuff in college, and that was part of the reason I failed. Because I mean, the college system's fine, but it's really teaching you to be a great employee. A lot of times, it's not really teaching you.
Even though you went for like a business major,
entrepreneurship, it doesn't really teach and I thought that's where the gap was. As valuable as college was, it doesn't teach you really necessarily what you need to know to actually grow your own company. And so that is kind of one of my purposes, is to fill in those gaps, because there's really nowhere you learn this stuff. It's a lot of it's through the trial of hard knocks, unfortunately, or by working and getting mentored by people that have done it before. I've always invested a lot, like you, in a lot of mentorship, a lot of books, conferences. So a lot of these are, this kind of summation of, over 20 years of growth and marketing. Kind of, I'm putting it all down on paper so others can leverage and kind of not go through the failures I've experienced.
Yeah. And you just putting it down, were you surprised that you had so much knowledge in you to share? Because that's how I feel sometimes. I start making like a simple little course, and then people ask me a lot of questions, and I'm like, you don't know that? Sometimes I forget like how far this journey has already gone.
Yeah, it really does. Well, and the funny thing is, I've learned a lot through doing this too, because a lot of things I've done intuitively or just kind of haven't really deeply thought about it. But then when you write it down on paper and create a framework, you really, and you have others look at it. So like I've hired a lot of people that had no background in sales or marketing at all, purposely, because I was hiring more for a culture fit. But the other benefit is that, they ask great questions because they know nothing about this. So they have no preconceived notions. So having them on has been amazing because they'll ask questions like, that's a great question. Let me add that to the framework. And so that's been very valuable too. So I feel like I myself have become a better salesperson, marketer, et cetera, by going through my own process because I've really had to think about it much, much deeper.
I had to agree with that too. Every time I do another course or I write up some paperwork or I talk to people that I'm coaching, I learn more too because
Yeah.
I don't I don't lie about it. So I know there's
Yeah.
some people that are just like, yeah, I know everything. No, you don't know everything, but I can get you the information. I can
Yeah.
get, so what's your
Right.
question? You know,
Yeah.
I'll figure it out and I'll write
Yeah.
you something that's going to be like you can follow
Right.
and understand.
Yeah.
You know, but if there's somebody out there that just looking it out for the money, then you don't want to work with that person. You
No.
want to work with somebody like Tony that's been doing, you know, entrepreneurship, learning and training for a while. Yeah, I love people that actually has been through it and is not stuck on their ego. I've made a lot of people even stuck on their ego. That's like, hey, I made millions of dollars and I came up with all these amazing courses. Like, yeah, that's amazing. You know, you're doing really great. And they're like, yep, I sure am. And then, yeah, and it's just like, okay, now you're taking it a little bit too far.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I dealt with some that are just like,
there could be a lot of ego in place.
Yeah,
Yes, for sure.
they're up there.
Yeah.
And
you know, I've had the fortune to work with billionaires though, and a lot of the most successful people I've met, you know, on the private jets and everything else, the most successful people I found do not have the biggest ego.
That's true.
You know, I
I've
found like the
known
very, very high
that
level.
is
It's in the middle.
very
They're
true.
kind of like that.
That is very true because I do know a one gentleman that I'm friends with and I do work on another project with, and he is the kindest, most like orientated person I've ever met. And then, you know, you think that when you hit a certain level, and I'm telling this for everybody that's listening or watching the YouTube, because I know this is what people think, because I hear it all the time, that you're going to hit a certain level and it just stops and just keeps growing. And it never works like that. It never does. But he is the most hardworking person behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I know. Like, he outdoes everything I'm probably doing now, and I think I do a lot. I'm not even close to what you're doing. I was like, I don't even know how you maintain that just by yourself. I know you've got some people, but you know, just seeing what you do is impressive. So
thank you.
And framework is important. Framework definitely is the only way you're going to have, you know, something massive in the amount of time that you're trying to make things happen.
Yeah.
You say you've talked to even billionaires about this. Did you teach them your process too?
Yeah. I mean, billionaires are a little bit different. A lot of times they, you know, a lot of times you can be kind of a sounding board to fix certain issues. You know, a lot of times they don't have the patience. Like a lot of very successful people at that level don't necessarily have the time or the patience to go through a whole framework. So it's more fixing specific issues. You know, like for instance, you know, they might have an issue with how to like a big thing a lot of people always want to know, even at the biggest companies, is what's called attribution, how to really track something all the way down to the sale, you know, with analytics and things like that. So a lot of times I can fill gaps in like that they, you know, wouldn't want to necessarily figure out. But, you know, this is better. Frameworks are better for either smaller companies that or people that have more time to go through it, or maybe like employees of a bigger company. It'd be a better fit for that. But like billionaire owners definitely will not be going through
no,
this.
they're not. True. I know, because I get asked to be a part of a lot of different groups, and I bet you do too. Facebook is boiling over with the amount of groups there is.
Yeah.
And I know I have some that are like my friends even ask me, and they're like, I really wish you'd join this. I'm like, I have to delegate my time. If I can hire somebody to do that, and then it's better for me to take my time and hire somebody, because I need to focus on what I need to provide my people.
Right.
And you have to make those decisions. You really have to think, okay, well, you know, this is going to benefit me, but you know, maybe I need to have my employee go do it.
Yeah. And that's how they grow too. It's good to, you know, have your team learn things because it grows them, it keeps them fresh and engaged. and you might take it for granted. It might be easy for you. You might be bored with it. You give it to someone junior and they're all excited, and, it invigorates them. So I
Oh
always
yeah.
like the idea of, pushing things down if I can.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
have you trained this live, or you do this mostly in online?
Yeah. Originally I was thinking of doing it more online, but just, I think the way things are going, people want a lot more engagement. And so I'm finding myself doing this more as a workshop where it's more interactive. People just
Yeah.
want to ask the questions. And so that's really how I'm doing it, either in a group coaching environment, or occasionally we'll do one-on-one if it's a bigger company.
Okay, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
And it's either me or I have a team that can also coach this
Yes, that you
individually.
trained.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's
If
cool.
it's really just depends on my bandwidth at the time, whether I'm available to do it myself.
Yeah. So I imagine that you do this throughout the United States. Do you do it at other places, like provided, since you say you do some online now and you're doing more of the workshops, is this limited to just the United States, or is it
No,
something?
no, I'm
Okay.
working with some people in Canada, for instance. Mostly English speaking. It's the only language I know.
Yeah.
But outside,
Unless you're going to get a translator.
yeah,
Translator.
exactly. I
Yeah.
seem to be talking to a lot of people in the UK now as well, for some whatever reason.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, those are the main areas. Australia once in a while.
Yeah, I've gotten to know a lot of people out in Australia
Yeah,
since this whole COVID thing,
yeah,
and they're just so happy. And I
yeah,
love talking to people in Australia.
yeah,
They're just so happy. So
yeah.
I just talked to
I love
somebody
them.
last night from Australia, and then this
Yeah.
morning, because I was connecting them too. They're both similar like paths, and I wanted to bridge them together.
Oh, very
So
cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, you went through all this ups and downs,
yeah.
definitely, with the bakery, and then this, and then another bakery. So, I'm curious now. What is your parents doing now? Did you go back to another bakery, or?
No, no. Well, unfortunately, my father passed away, but my
Oh, I
mother's still doing
apologize.
well. But and she was actually, I didn't get into this, but she was the inspiration behind the title of my book.
Oh,
Small
really?
steps. Yeah, in terms of like resiliency and how to overcome challenges, she's one of the best people I know. And the reason why is because back in the 1930s, there was kind of another epidemic going through. So of course, a lot of us are dealing with COVID. Most of us, pretty much the whole world.
Yeah.
But back then, they had polio, the polio epidemic. And so my
Yeah.
mother contracted polio in the late 1930s
Oh, wow.
and wasn't able to walk from the age of 9 months old all the way up to 14. And,
Wow. That
growing
is a
up,
lot of time.
exactly. Yeah. So just like today, she was quarantined. They had respirators, which they called iron lungs back then. She couldn't see her family, couldn't interact with her sisters.
From the age of what, 6 months, you said?
9 months, 9 months
9 months to
to 14.
14?
Yeah, 14 years, very limited access.
Wow.
And so I asked
Wow.
her, growing up, even before all this, I asked her, how in the world did you survive that? Like, how can you do that? Like, what's mentally and just physically and just the whole bit? And she kind of told me, which I carry to this day, whenever I'm facing a challenge, what I do is break it down into small steps. And that was kind of how the name came up. But really, like for her, they started with building the nervous system, being able to move. And so they would have her doing pottery. Then eventually she'd be in a
Wow.
pool, learning to move. And eventually after that, they'd have them walking step by step between two poles, to the point where she eventually was able to wear high heels older, when she was a teenager. And even today, she can still walk. Well, she's 85, and a lot of people her age can't walk at all. But here
No,
she is, a
yeah.
polio survivor, still able to walk.
And
And
she
she's,
didn't walk for 14 years. So, I
yeah,
mean, if she can
yeah,
do it, yeah,
exactly.
anybody can do it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And that was kind of the inspiration to kind of circle back to where we were before, of thinking about what do you want to do and why, how are you going to do it, and then actually taking the action to do it. And that was really the secret, is you break it down and you first say, okay, why is this important to me? What do I have to do? How am I going to do it? And then actually doing it. And a lot of people get stuck on all those areas because, like, for instance, losing weight. You might know, I think most of us know what has to be done, right? And maybe why, right? We don't want to have a hard time.
Yeah.
a lot of us know how, right? You got to exercise more, eat less, etc. But then you have to actually do it.
Actually count your calories, and you got to do what the bodybuilders do, and that's a discipline. That's
exactly.
A discipline.
Well, that's the part. The do. Right. And so one of those areas usually gets us. And so the key is to know what those areas are, and to build good habits around that, so you can actually accomplish what you need to do. But that really goes back to my mom. Like that story of resilience is really breaking it down and doing what you need to get to accomplish your goal.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, what is the book about again? It's
well, it's really how
small steps, right?
It's a business book, but it's really how to overcome obstacles and become resilient in your business and in life, because it tells those stories. It tells the story of my mother. It also tells the story, each of these areas, the what, the how, and action, is accompanied by a story. So for instance, the what, you have to look at your strategy. And I tell the story of the 1980s Miracle on Ice team. And so they, back then, it was a very upstart kind of hockey team, right? And they're in the Olympics trying to take on, it's a Disney movie. You can watch it.
Oh, okay.
But essentially they couldn't win. They were trying to beat the Russian team, which won like 5 years in a row. And so how were they able to actually, spoiler alert, win? Well, they changed their strategy. They changed what they did. And so that's how they overcome. If you look at the how, really the how to do something comes down to two things: your planning and your execution. So I tell the story about JFK and the mission to Mars, or mission to Mars. I'm speaking prophetically. The mission to the moon, the mission to the moon. And like, how was he able to do that? Well, he had a plan. He had a specific date. I want to accomplish the mission to the moon by the end of the decade.
And deadlines are important too. Yeah. We talk about deadlines. But
absolutely. So he had that vision. And because he had that vision, people were able to get, behind that and accomplish it, and it outlived him, because of course he was tragically, killed. And so that's the story I tell about, that. And so each of these areas, I have stories that accompany it. And it's a business book, because I talk about this framework and other things, but it's just as much a life book, because these principles apply universally to anything. And I really think that's how the best business leaders think. They think kind of from the principles, and really it's simple questions: why, what, how, when. Simple questions, but simple, but not easy.
No, it's retraining, because a lot of it, well, none of it I think is taught like ever. I never find any of the principles that I've learned, even now, like I'm just surprised how much I kind of like played out this far in entrepreneurship and didn't like face like serious like obstacles. I mean, I've had obstacles. I've lost tons of money. I've made like stupid decisions, but but all in all, it was not ever really knowing the system behind it. And then now that I, do have the opportunity to learn more of that and have the time to do it and teach it, it's just, wow, what a difference. And it's not that hard just to know the principles, but it's hard to implement them, to make them the new habits, because we're so like pre-programmed to the old habits that we always want to fall back to those. We're like, oh, we're going to do this, or so-and-so, like this whole group of people are doing that, I must be doing something wrong. And it's so far from the truth, because it was like everybody was programmed to do that, so everybody's still in that. But yet, you need to learn to break that comfort zone and try what, you believe is what's going to work. Because if it's not working over here, don't keep pushing at it, because, unless you really just want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, because there's great inventions that came out of just keep going, but, you might be doing it for a lot longer than you need to be doing it.
Absolutely. Well, and the sad thing too is, especially small businesses, they tend to copy each other. And that's never where the innovation comes from. Innovation always comes from outside. And so if you look at the greatest innovations, whether it's, leveraging Velcro, that came from looking at nature. If you look at Ford Motor Company, the production, that came, that was inspired by meat packing plants, and so the problem is with a lot of businesses, if they're in an industry, and I hate this question because people always ask me, what have you done in this industry? And it's really I mean, I always answer it, but it's really an irrelevant question because the best innovations actually come from outside. So if I'd rather have someone that's outside of the industry because they give a different perspective.
It's the creative mind. You have to hit
Correct.
into that creative mind,
Correct.
which we seem to lose that as a child because we realize that this fantasy world that a lot of like our holidays and stuff are based around is not true because we find that out growing up.
Right.
And then we kind of just like dispel all creativity.
Yeah.
We're just like, well, if that's not true, then no creativity things are true.
Yeah.
We kind of like generalize it. Whereas Albert Einstein, says, the most creative people are going to be the most successful because they keep challenging reality. They keep wanting something that doesn't exist. And they don't care if nobody says that it's impossible or anything else because they see it. They know it's possible. And that's how we've gotten so far in mankind with electricity, with, cars, with everything. It's because somebody actually took the step out of the box and said, you know what, there's something else here and I'm going to go figure it out. So definitely.
Vision. You have to have vision.
Yeah.
Without, there's I think it was King Solomon said, without vision, people perish. So you have to have some sort of vision. Like you can't, if you don't have a vision, how are you going to get anywhere? And so I think that, you need to have a greater vision. You have to have a mission behind that, a purpose. And then you really have to have values that align with that. That's kind of the foundation of anything,
Yeah, definitely. So, Tony, where would people actually get in touch with you and learn about your book and all the other stuff too?
Yeah, probably the best place to go is I took a lot of the best parts out of my book and put it into a small manifesto. Very graphical.
So is it like a PDF or?
It is, yeah. So anyone can go download it. Yeah, you can go to smallstepsmanifesto.com and download it. I don't ask for a form or anything. It's really just to get the information out there. I want people to kind of really learn, hear my story, hear my mother's story, hear the stories we talked about today. And so, you just go to smallstepsmanifesto.com and you can download it today. It's available now.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I really like how you focus your book around stories because I find stories are easier to remember than just general information. So I find that your book's going to really impact a lot of people out there that are stuck on, just initially making those small steps. So definitely cool on that. So you said that when we started that the book will be available in October.
Yes.
Well, is there a way when they download your manifesto that they can like sign up to get notification when that comes out?
Yeah, and you can actually even pre-order it. And so there's links within the manifesto to pre-order it. There's also an assessment. So you can assess your results score, which looks at these 6 growth factors. And you can see where you stand within that. All of that's available within the manifesto. Lots of freebies.
Cool. Yeah, I like those. In fact, I put them in a lot of my stuff as well. I like things that are interactive.
Yeah.
It just makes more fun. And plus it cements the information I find when I do things like that. And so I try to teach that way as well, where give them something to play around with.
Well, it's good because you kind of know where to focus. So if you see you got a 20% in one of the factors, well, maybe you should focus there as opposed to the other one where you're doing well. So it kind of gives you a roadmap of what to focus on next.
Yeah, very cool. So you said you also do the training as well.
Yes.
Where would they get in contact with you with the training?
Yeah, so I have actually for your audience, I have membership to the Results Club. So the Results Club is group coaching where I'll answer any question you have regarding growth, sales, marketing, anything in digital marketing at all. Literally, I've done it for 20 years. So if you have a question, I could probably answer it. And so that's $297 a month. But what I'm doing for all the podcasts I visit for your audience is just $1 for the 2 months.
Oh, wow.
And so
so they can get in, they can get familiar with everything and then and then continue from there.
Yeah, if you see value, you can stay, or if not, that's fine too. But yeah, I have a special coupon code we can put in your show notes where you can share.
We'll do that. We'll do that. Yeah, so definitely check out the show notes. That would be in the description on the YouTube channel. For the podcast, I don't know if all of them have show notes, so go over to Amena.Media. Amena.Media, that's my name, AMENA.Media in your browser, and that'll go right over to YouTube channel, go under the series called Message of Hope, Stories from Struggle to Success. And you are listening to episode number 36 today. So episode number 36. And you'll see Tony's name featured on the cover art as well. So you'll definitely be able to find the one that you're looking for, or just send me a message. My contact information is everywhere on social media. Just don't feel bad. Send me a message and I'll just send you directly.
I'm sure it's not hard to track any one of us down nowadays. So.
Probably not.
You know how to use Google.
I try to make myself pretty available if people really want to connect and ask a question. I don't hide my stuff. I don't believe in the early days of the website hiding.
No.
Let's just be all secret about it. Send it to this way off form.
Nowadays, not so much, right? No.
It's just not. It's not the way. It feels weird. For one, it's like I'm getting messages and I'm responding, but is these people real or not real? And they're probably feeling the same way. They're probably feeling like this person really doesn't care. So at least have an employee or something. Call them back. Something.
Something. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again, Tony, for you coming on the Message of Hope and sharing your story. And I want to ask you one last question today. And is there anything that you'd like to leave behind here today, like a final message on just getting people to get out of their comfort zone and find hope in their own lives and whatever struggles they're dealing with?
Yeah, I would say, whatever struggle you're going through, there's probably been someone else that's gone through that before. And so my advice would be to find someone that's done that, whether it's a mentor, someone you can that could be a good role model, and kind of follow what they're doing. And that's kind of one of the things that's gotten me to where I'm at. I've always surrounded myself with people that are ahead of me, that I can learn from. And so anytime that can happen, you're going to be setting yourself up for success. So that would be my word of encouragement for anyone on here. And happy to help you if you think I might be someone that can help you with that. Happy to answer questions that you might have. There's plenty of people out there, so just get help from somebody. Don't try to tackle this world by yourself. It's too much.
And I gotta back that up too, because even if like you reach out to somebody and they just ignore you or you're not getting the feedback, just keep looking. That person's not for you. You're not supposed to go down that direction. Go find somebody else. Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck too, because I do get people that say, hey, I'm waiting for so-and-so to get back to me and I've been waiting months and months and months. I was like, well, why don't you go and contact some more people in that area? You'll feel a lot more at peace, and just find somebody that wants to give their time to you. And just keep going. Don't get stagnant. Don't rely on people to give you the answer. You don't know what they're going through. You can't, we all can only do what we can do. So
exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, they don't know.
Yeah. So thank you again, Tony. And again, if you guys want to reach out to Tony and ask him any questions about his journey and, need some mentoring from him or coaching from him, just reach out to him and he'll be happy to help. Just like everybody that comes on this show, this program, A Message of Hope, Stories from Struggle to Success, every single one has volunteered their time and knowledge to help anybody out there. So don't be scared. Send a private message. I know some people don't want to put it publicly, but it's okay. It's okay. We're here.
Yeah, exactly. Because we've been there ourselves, right? So if you've been through a challenge, you want to help. You want to go back and help the people,
we're extending ladders here.
Yeah,
we're not burning bridges. So.
No, exactly. So
thank you again, Tony.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.